When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And if you have the ambition, the audacity to take on a competitive, challenging business world, this is where we empower you to win tomorrow's business challenges today. Welcome to your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. This is Bisnomics. A digital economy, cashless society, global payment systems, electronic commerce. All these terms have come into being used in our day-to-day business language more so than ever before, mainly thanks to the advancements in the new normal created due to COVID-19. One might even say that COVID, COVID, actually stands for Chief of Visioning in Digitalization, because due to this current pandemic situation, so many companies, so many economies are rethinking, reimagining how they are going to be doing their economic activities, business activities in the new normal. Today, our focus will be on digital economy and the cashless society, a term we hear so often in the business world, even in Sri Lanka. But is this practically possible? Are we making the right steps? And are we heading in the right direction towards this? Or is this some fancy word that we will be expecting in a utopia, in an urban utopia in the future? Let's find out more about this in today's episode of Bisnomics. And joining me is the CEO of Lanka Clear, Channa De Silva, to talk more on this subject. Channa, welcome to Bisnomics. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Channa, what exactly is a digital economy and why does it matter so much? We keep hearing this word again and again and again, right? Some people think that this is just some fancy word we use in business conferences. End of the day, we talk all these big words. We go back to the normal economic activities, paying by cash and all that. And there's a lot of confusion regarding this. I mean, what exactly is a digital economy? Enlighten us.
Yeah, so generally most of the economic activities traditionally has been manual, paper-based and all that. So what happened is those are sort of more of inefficient ways of doing things. So I think in a nutshell, what digital economy is using technology to facilitate and drive an economy. So that's basically what it is. So a digital economy will have multiple options and multiple ways of doing things. Payments is only one section of the digital economy as a whole. But overall use of technology for ease of business, I think I would say that would be the most appropriate way of addressing digital economy.
Understood. So what are the other facets of a digital economy that we have? You said payments is one thing.
Yeah. So whatever that mechanism of technology that you can use for providing convenience, improving productivity, and so on. So use of any system for improving productivity is also part of digital economy. So payment is only one part of the whole equation. Like even for a payment transaction, there's document processing. There are so many other things like invoicing, purchase orders, and all that. So most of those things have been manual. But now, especially thanks to COVID, as you very correctly said initially, people are now looking at the entire value chain of digitizing. Starting from the first step to the last step, everything to be digital, because obviously, it has put them into a situation where there is no choice of, physical access in most cases.
Understood.
So because of that, I think use of technology can play a role in every step of the transaction.
Channa, why does this matter so much? I mean, is this the inevitable that is right now coming in full force due to COVID-19? And for someone who is running their own business or running their own little shop, maybe a vegetable vendor or maybe someone who owns a salon, why does this term digital economy matter so much to them?
Yeah, I think from a business perspective, large organization and large businesses, it's a no-brainer. I mean, the benefits of the productivity and the efficiency improvement, when you say refer to the SMEs, the smallest segment of the SMEs, why would it matter? So in addition to providing efficiency, there are actually inherent benefits that they get out of this. Now, one simple example I can take is, when they deal in cash, this smallest segment, they always deal in cash. Very rarely, there's a electronic payment or transaction happening. Now, what happens is the money that they get comes in the form of cash,
Yes.
and they use that form of cash to make a payment, whether to buy vegetables for themselves.
Correct. Channa, I want to just interrupt and share one of my recent experiences with you, because you said this SMEs.
Yes.
So one person whom I know who has started his own salon. So when I visited him, it's a first day and you want to, look after him and support him as well. And he was saying that, so I went expecting to pay with my card, my debit card. And he said, well, I don't have the machine yet. So I said, okay. I said, give me your account number. I will transfer the money to you or deposit the money to you. This has been about more than 2 weeks now.
Right.
And he has still not sent me the account number. Yeah. And every time I remind him, he's like, no, the next time you come in, bring the money.
Yes, so the whole problem is actually some of these guys don't really see the value of this. So one example I want to take is actually this really addresses a social issue, because now what are these SMBs, right? They never have access to credit because their money never goes and hits a bank account. So, you took the salon example, but if you take a simple example like a three-wheeler guy, right? Pre-COVID, he used to make 50 to 60,000 rupees a month.
That's not bad.
That money never went and hit a bank account, right?
Understood.
So because of that, the bank didn't know what his income was.
How much he was worth.
Because of that, he never had access to credit. He could never get a loan from a bank. So the only option for him was to go to a loan shark and get a loan at 10% interest, and most of the cases unable to pay, maybe sell his three-wheeler.
Yes.
So now what happens is when the transactions go and hit the financial system, it gets deposited in a bank, the bank can assess over a 6 months period. He suddenly start building a credit history. So he becomes suddenly credit worthy. Maybe he can get 100,000 loan from the bank because the bank knows he's getting 50 to 60,000 a month and it's recoverable. So suddenly this social problem, there's a solution now to the social problem, which was sort of, it was there in your face, but nobody really, did anything about it. But now, if we can get this bottom of the pyramid, if I call them that way,
yes,
merchants into the ecosystem, we suddenly find a social problem to the social solution to the social problem, right? On the other side, we are talking about digital, electronic, and all that, and still it's very much restricted to Western province, right? And when you look at the population as a whole in Sri Lanka, 82% of the population live rural. It's only 18% that is urban.
82% is rural.
Rural, right? I mean, these are statistics. So if you are to go for a digital economy, unless you get majority of this 82% into the formal financial system to do electronic transactions and digital transactions, whether it's payments or any other digital transaction, we are not going to go. We are not going to be successful because looking at the context now, Thailand, if you compare, similar country, Thailand has a 50% urban population. So they are thriving, even if they just focus on urban,
yes,
they can target to 50%. But in Sri Lanka, if you just target urban only, it's only 18%. So even a fraction of that would be, say, 10%. So we are not going to go anywhere if we just keep our focus only to urban.
Understood.
So that is where the micro merchants, the SME sector who are outside the urban areas, we need to get them into the formal, a system of banking and financial through technology.
And also, I think the main factor which a lot of SMEs are missing out here is the fact that by having some of these digital platforms, all of a sudden you are on the same platform along with some of the other top brands in the country. So it levels out the playing field quite well, and it improves competition, which is overall good for any economy.
Absolutely. I think especially if you are doing online retail, right, your size doesn't really matter because you are not visible. It's just a storefront, it's technology, and you don't know, the goods may get delivered through some channel.
Understood.
And it doesn't matter whether you are selling things from a house, right? So again, true enough, it levels the playing field. But the main problem that we face is the fulfillment of the transaction, right? So what happens is a larger organization will have the entire supply chain enabled.
The fleet, the delivery vehicles, etc.
So unless that same promise is delivered by an SME, even though you may have technology, things may not work. So they need to figure out a mechanism. Actually, technology has solutions for that mechanism. Now, for example, there are enough delivery channels out there. So all technology needs to do is integrate this. Get the SMEs on board, get the delivery channels on board, ensure that a transaction gets delivered and you keep the promise. So once that is done, a transaction fulfillment will happen. Then it suddenly becomes open, and it suddenly becomes a level playing field for everybody. So it is happening now.
Channa, let's talk about where we stand as a country in this journey towards being a digital economy. Yes, we hear the bold, the audacious ambitions. We do hear about the plans. But as you very correctly said, only 18% of our population is living in a urban area. The rest is all in rural areas. And in terms of these digital transactions, the percentages, share some details with us. How far or how close are we as a country to moving towards a digital economy successfully?
Yeah. So I will share you with where we are in terms of the adoption. So before I get to that, I need to say that we have had the instruments to do so for a long time in place. The problem has been actually the adoption of those instruments. That is where the fundamental issue, right? So as I said, from a transaction perspective, payment is only one component, but the documentation part is also becoming a huge issue. I mean, how do you send an invoice? How do you get a payment? How do you get somebody's signature, right? All those things. So for
and some places refuse to accept an email receipt or invoice.
Absolutely. So we have had digital signatures enabled since 2009 in the country. Since 2009, right? And people have not really been using, and we have the legislation, which is the Electronic Transactions Act, which is accepting a digital signature in a court of law. So the legal framework is there, the technology is there, the adoption has not been there of that. So now, I mean, whether it's an invoice, whether it's a PO, whether it's any document that needs for a transaction, any transaction, can be digitally signed and digitally sent, and which is valid from a legal perspective. So that has been there. So the enabling framework for document sharing has been there. The second part, even if you look at the payment infrastructure, things have been there for, I mean, cards have been there for almost 2 decades, right? And we have issued 23 million plus debit cards into this market, out of a 21.3 million population, right?
So more debit cards and
than the population, people, right? So which means one person has more than one card, right?
Correct.
We have almost 1.8 million credit cards, right? We have about almost 83,000 point of sale terminals issued.
So what you're saying is we have number of debit cards are more than the population, and even credit cards we have about 1.8 million.
8.8 million, right? So the traditional problem has been people have not used this for payments. Traditionally, everybody is using this as an ATM card. They use the card to go to an ATM and withdraw cash, not engage in a electronic transaction without cash, right? So that has been traditional. So why this is so? So the traditional problem has been adoption of electronic payments. So why this is so is because actually contextual as well, right? Because if you compare a country like in Africa, they had this mobile payment mechanism called M-Pesa, right? It was very, very popular. But why was that popular? Because of the context. In Africa, you don't get banks, you don't get branches, you don't get ATMs all over the place. It's very sparse, right? So somebody wanting to go to an ATM has to travel, 10, 15, 20 kilometers. And sometimes there may not be transport.
Correct.
So the only option for them was to move digital in that. But in Sri Lanka,
so when if you push to a corner, you give it your best shot.
Absolutely. In Sri Lanka, I mean, you get out of the road, there's an ATM. There's a bank branch all over the country. So access to formal financial systems has not been a huge problem, especially in terms of cash. So you go to an ATM now. I mean, we ourselves have enabled connecting all the ATMs. So you don't even necessarily need to go to your own bank's ATM. You can go to any ATM. So access to cash has been very 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 prevalent, right? So because of that, people really did not have a problem of using cash, right? So and taking cash out of an ATM and using that for any transaction was, I mean, there were issues like no change money and other issues, right? But they didn't really see a problem of using cash, and that's why we have more than 90% of transactions are still done in cash in the country, even though we have internet banking, we have mobile banking, we have fintech apps, a plethora of technologies out there. People have not been using until February of this year, where the pandemic started.
Channa, we are going to come to that, the pandemic and the cashless society correlation in a bit. Tell me, especially before COVID-19, where was the world in terms of moving towards a digital economy? We see some very advanced economies like the Scandinavian countries like Sweden, where about 97% of the transactions are happening on a highly digital scale. My question to you is, the world in terms of adopting this digital economy and a cashless society, where was the world, especially before COVID-19?
Yeah, so even before or even post-COVID, right, I think the term used as a cashless society may be a bit misleading. Misleading. Because I foreseeable future, I don't think we will go towards a cashless society than a less cash society.
Very interesting.
Right? So
like a minimized usage, minimal usage.
Absolutely. So, I mean, even a country like US, I mean, more than 50% are still cash-based, right? I mean, you would expect, advanced economies to have that. So, certainly, I mean, a couple of European countries are moving towards sort of a, if you will, a cashless society. 90s, the usage of digital is in the 90s, which is a very advanced state. But I would say, in most countries, the target would be to reduce the usage of cash than to be a cashless. Because there are certain instances where you may need cash, in certain areas. But so in that sense, what we are talking is basically a hybrid mechanism of people to work. Right? There will be cash, there will be checks. I mean, you can't say it will be 100% die in the foreseeable future. And there will certainly be a majority would be electronic and digital payments. So I think it will be a hybrid system worldwide. Post-COVID might push the digital into a higher percentage of obvious reasons. But I think overall it will be a less cash society than a cashless society.
Interesting. Now, in terms of the whole aspect of, as you said, less cash society and the cashless. Now, if we are to consider maybe even within the Asian region, now some of the countries like, for example, Singapore, they've moved very much towards this digital economy and digital payments. Anything that we could actually learn from these countries that have adopted digital economy and less cash society, as you coined it, what can we actually learn from them? What has driven the less cash society concept in these countries?
Yeah, I think some of these countries, the government has created this push. That has actually, because for example, if you just digitize one segment of the economy,
a critical segment
only, right, it's still not going to get widespread use, right? Now, for example, what India did, I take an example. Indian government took the cash out, what they call demonetization. So when you take the cash out, what is the only option? Your only option is digital, right? So people had no choice but to move to digital, right? But what happened was when the demonetization was reduced, when cash started to introduce into the market, people actually went back. The percentages of digital started dropping.
So this whole digital economy adoption is more like a spring, isn't it? The more you pull, it's going to come back springy.
Well, I think it should be, when you are bringing a solution, we should look at a long-term sustainable model rather than just taking the cash out and, assume that everybody will move. Because we are talking about a behavioral change.
Understood.
From a
takes
people.
time.
It takes a huge amount of time and effort and awareness, right? Why they should do that. And also, just because somebody does one transaction doesn't mean he'll continuously do that in the foreseeable future. So he needs to understand the benefits, he needs to understand the advantages of doing that, and there's a lot of hand-holding, educational process, awareness process that must go in. So some of these countries, all those processes are in place. Right? And you cannot just go and tell a merchant, start accepting electronic payment, it will be good for you. But, it should be seen. Right?
Is the language barrier also playing a part in this, in Sri Lanka?
To some extent, yes. Now, for example, if you take statistically how this is playing in that sense, right? You look at the ATM cash withdrawals. I mean, when you look at the banking network, almost 60 to 65% of withdrawals, or even it reaches up to 70 sometimes, withdrawals are using local language menus from ATMs. Sinhala or Tamil menus, right? So that gives us a clue as to people's choice of technology and they are preferred to use, because obviously you are dealing with money, right? You press the wrong button, what will happen? So
people have that fear.
People definitely have that fear, and also if you don't understand the language,
correct,
and you're making a mistake, could be more. So certainly trilingual. I mean, if you are looking at this 82% rural population, language is going to play a role. So it has to be trilingual options for people to access technology. Otherwise, the adoption might not be as good as what we would like it to be.
Quite a valid thought there, Channa. Is digital banking and digital economic activities truly secure for you and your business? This and more we will be discussing on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Our focus today is on the digital economy, where we intend to break the myths, debunk whatever you may have heard wrong about this digital economy, and we try to get to the crux of the matter on how you, as a business owner, can use digital economy, what benefits does it hold, and most importantly, what to be aware of. Joining me for this discussion is the CEO of Lanka Clear, Channa De Silva. Channa, let's talk about COVID and cashless, or COVID and less cash as you coined it. But it's no great secret that COVID has really made us rethink about cash usage, especially due to some health concerns that the virus could stay active and alive on cash notes for a considerable time period. What is your thought on this? And most importantly, what is the impact that COVID-19 have towards driving people on using these digital payment systems?
Yeah, I think fear of touching cash has certainly in the minds of people.
Even in Sri Lanka.
Even in Sri Lanka. I mean, obviously the health sectors and everybody has sort of given warnings of to reduce usage. So certainly people are more cautious in using cash. But I think more than that, during if I may call the lockdown period, where there was curfew all over, even to have access to physical cash was not there. So people couldn't go to the ATM, couldn't get out of the house, couldn't go to the bank, even to do a transaction, right? And those things certainly, gave people an opportunity also to rethink how they are doing things, and also put them into a situation where they had no choice. So generally, when you are put into a situation where there's no choice, you try new things. So I think that is what really
thinking out of the box.
Thinking out of the box, and to see what can be done. It's how you survive more than some trying to do new things and innovation and all that. So all this innovation comes when you are restricted and when you are put into something. So people will need to figure out a way out. So I think that is where this whole thing. I think it's more than the fear of touching cash. I think it's not having access is what really drove people to rethink.
Because you couldn't go out due to lockdown.
Absolutely.
You couldn't go to the banks, were closed.
Absolutely. And also when the merchants used to come to the house, you did not have cash with you. So what option do you have to make a payment? So all these combined together, I think the majority was restricted access.
And Channa, the small time merchants were very agile and flexible in this, isn't it? I mean, you'll have the guy coming in the vegetable lorry or the fruit lorry and saying, okay, buy what you want and here's the amount, transfer it to my account.
Yeah, so that was the only option available to them. As you very correctly said, even to use cards, the merchant needs to have an instrument, right? And most of these guys don't have that instrument. So even if a customer has a card, you have no way of paying. Right? So the next best option was to transfer money to their account. So at the beginning I said there are 23 million debit cards in the market. So what it means is there are more than 23 million bank accounts, which means everybody practically has a bank account. So the simplest thing to do is to transfer funds to the account. Because actually, we tried this, with this mobile money previously, something similar to M-Pesa in Africa. We had these mobile companies offering, mobile money solutions, right?
With a lot of restrictions, but it was available.
Restriction was, okay, there was a value restriction,
Correct.
But actually the more restriction was the receiver also had to have the same wallet to get the funds to get transferred.
From the same company?
Majority of from the same company.
Yes.
So then it's a restriction, because if the receiver doesn't have, you have no way of sending.
Understood.
But here, in most cases the receiver will have a bank account somewhere. So all you need to figure out is how do you get money to that guy's bank account, right? Whether it's a merchant or whether it's an individual. If I want to send money to somebody, right, what are the options I had? I mean, previously if I want to send money to my domestic's brother in some village, I had to go to the post office, get a money order. It will take a couple of days and the confirmation will take longer, and all those I cannot do, right? I mean, and suddenly people started having an option of doing that electronically because they anyways had access. I mean, if you really look at the mobile penetration and the smartphone penetration in Sri Lanka, the mobile penetration is almost 140% of the population.
140% mobile penetration
in the country.
That means technically, numerically, we have more than the number of people. We have more mobile phones.
Absolutely, and more importantly, almost 50% of them are now smartphones.
Wow.
Right? So the problem is people are not really using them. You have been using them traditionally for some of these things, and now it have given them an option because their tools are already available to use them. I think that is where the shift that happened.
Channa, I want to come to a very crucial question now: security. Everyone has a doubt and a fear. What will happen if the information lands in the wrong hands? I mean, for any business owner, for any customer, any individual, it's a nightmare to think that the payment details entered will go to the wrong party. And this has happened. Sri Lankans have lost money, their credit card information has been compromised, and there's been so many such cybercrime issues taking place, although many might not talk about it. From both angles, since you're at the center of the matter, the epicenter of this matter, I would like to know your thoughts from the consumer side and also from the business side. Right. How safe is digital economic activities in Sri Lanka as we speak right now?
Yeah, I think traditionally, I mean, there's this misconception has been there amongst people, because lack of understanding. Now, when you are dealing with cash, you are facing much more dangers than doing it digitally anyway, right? There's always somebody coming and mugging you or taking the cash away, taking the cash in transit, all that, right? And one of the questions actually somebody asked me said that I'm afraid to give my credit card online because somebody might steal that information. But the same guy goes to a restaurant and gives the credit card to a waiter who takes it inside, right? And comes back with a payment slip. But what do you need to make a payment using a credit card? It's the information on the credit card. So all you need to do is to take a photocopy, if at all, right?
Both sides.
Both sides, and then you are through. So they are not even thinking when we are doing it physically, but they are questioning when you are doing it electronically. So you have more dangers in physical than, whereas in online and in real time, have enough precautions. I mean, there are industry security standards, where it's called payment card industry data security standard, which is basically all the information is masked, even if somebody has access. I mean, true, it's not 100% foolproof, but there are enough precautions. I mean, there's two-factor authentications, a password and another, facial recognition. So there are enough. Or
maybe a code being sent to the mobile phone.
Code being sent to the, what we call the OTP transaction, one-time password transaction every time a transaction is done. So there are enough technology available to safeguard. It's just that whether people use it, sometimes the seamlessness might be a bit difficult because you have to enter twice a password and something. So technology will enable that to make it seamless. So there's enough and more precautions that have been taken. I mean, central bank has put out certain guidelines like baseline security standard for mobile payments. So all those applications,
that's a set of guidelines that all businesses has to follow.
All the banks have to follow when they are enabling mobile payment for mobile payment applications. They have to follow the standard. They have to get it audited and approved. Through an independent auditor. So there are enough precautions. I mean, the technology has been.
Also just stop you on that tracks over there and just make you think about this. The cybersecurity threats. We live in a global world. Yes. Some new cybersecurity threat or some ransomware or some IT security vulnerability that is happening in, let's say, the USA. It takes only a few minutes or hours to get transferred to the Sri Lankan economic activities also. Absolutely. The standards the central bank government, the central bank has set out, is it matched? Is it in line with these very vastly, very I would say, with a high velocity developing cybersecurity threats in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even the central bank guidelines, and there is from a government perspective, there is Sri Lanka CERT and other
Computer Emergency Response Team,
other entities who are following international standards. And even in our case, we are fully payment card industry data security standards certified. So which means even our people do not have access to the financial data that is there running in systems. And a fair bit of the banks also have gone through those certifications. In addition, ISO security certifications, and there are so many international. And in addition, we also use technology, as I said, digital certificates to encrypt the data. And the data that is stored in databases that are encrypted. Obviously, as I said, even in the US, there's no 100% foolproof system. Even recently NASA was attacked by certain hackers, right? So if NASA cannot prevent 100%,
yes,
obviously it cannot be. But it's the benefit of efficiency, improvement, productivity versus the risk. So as long as this has the efficiency and productivity and the gain has a better advantage, certain risks that you can take, and obviously you would try to minimize the risk.
Understood.
But there's technology in order to handle that. So I think it's the lack of awareness of what is available than it's not been there.
So make use of the benefits offered by balancing and minimizing the risk.
Absolutely.
That's the message.
Absolutely.
Channa, let's talk about government policy.
Yes.
Now, any, I would say, initiative towards any change of an economy, be it a simple evolutionary one or a complicated revolutionary one, like digital economy, needs proper government policy. Can we be happy with, and I'm not referring to just the current government, we've seen successive governments over the last 2 decades. Can we be happy as a country on the steps taken towards enabling a digital economy in Sri Lanka? Because I'm asking this, people always have this complaint that with regard to any economic activity, we see very short-term programs. Every time 5 years are done, we keep hitting the reset button. Is digital economy one area where that has not happened and we have made some steady progress? And in your view, what more steps can the government take to enable the adoption of a digital economy in Sri Lanka? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you look at from a digital transaction and payment side, I think there is, or from a legislature side, I think we are on a very good wicket. There's Payments and Settlements Act, there is Electronic Transactions Act, there's monetary law. So all those are actually enabling to do things electronically.
And do we have the proper laws and the standards in place to prevent even things like this digital money laundering?
Yeah. So anti-money laundering and all these are crimes and other areas. So, but there are certain areas lacking, which is like the data protection and privacy regulations, which are currently on draft mode. So hopefully those will become laws. So those are a few areas that is lacking. But I think we are moving in the right direction in that sense. Especially, I would like to say the Electronic Transactions Act, which basically enabled people to do things electronically, not just payment transactions, everything using digital signatures, I think, which is a real enabler for this whole economic piece, right? As you said, when you say policy, right, I think we need to look at the context of that. Lanka Clear has been there since 2002, almost 18 years now, actually more than 18 years now. Now, because of the government's change, the policies never change. So we have been steadily growing and enabling this throughout different governments, throughout our history. So I don't think from a government perspective, there had not been a sort of a deterrent in that sense. But from a policy level, I think right now we are in a bit of a unique situation, right? Right now we are in a bit of a unique situation where, we have a huge issue of foreign exchange, right? So we were heavily dependent on foreign exchange, right? Inflow of either tourism or remittances and so on.
Now, both of which are challenged right now.
Absolutely. Challenge is an understatement, I think, right? So it's huge.
Overwhelmingly
challenged, right? We are, practically close to zero. Then
tourism is close to zero. Probably zero.
Yes.
And remittances, we see so many Sri Lankans even abroad. They are losing their jobs, or they are unable to send the money.
It's gone down drastically. So we are not getting foreign exchange, right? On the second one is actually how do we grow the local businesses to produce the same services and goods in the country. I think that certainly that's an area that we need to concentrate. The third area is also which is actually import substitution, I think, which is what the current government, I think, as a policy they have adopted for at least that things that can be produced here.
Correct.
But an area that has sort of not really got the attention is even the limited foreign exchange that we earn are going back out of the country because of the foreign services that are available in the country.
The foreign digital services.
Digital services, right? I mean, from a digital marketing, I mean, you have all the digital channels, international channels, taking advertising revenue out of the country, billions of rupees, right?
Correct.
So
and
that is,
they don't even pay taxes.
they don't even pay taxes, right? And from a ride sharing, and there are companies who are
food ordering
companies who are international service. I mean, they don't even have a presence here,
Yes.
and they are taking money out where there is equivalent, equally capable, high quality services available locally, right, who can provide the same service. Same way on the payment side.
Channa, now, just to also add, because I believe so many of our viewers, listeners would have actually faced some challenges in using some of these foreign services. Some of these foreign services don't even care to have a proper customer service unit in the country.
Absolutely.
And if you have a problem, if you lose your purse in one of these rides, or let's say if someone is rude to you, they will say, well, tweet about it.
Yeah.
Tell us via Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, we as Sri Lankans, we deserve more. We demand more from these digital services.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very negative experience. I ordered food through an international listing, and when the food came, the somebody has eaten that food. I mean, I was really, so after that, all I put comments saying, please seal it and, never send it without, because I don't want the food to be tampered, right? I mean, so but then I had nowhere to call or nowhere to complain. There was a site and there was a message that I could send, saying I was dissatisfied, but that's it, right? So very correctly, that is there. So coming into payments, I mean, we have, we have been having cards for almost 2 decades. And whenever we use a card in a terminal, I mean, we are losing foreign exchange to the millions of to the tune of millions or billions of rupees for a year, and that money goes out of the country, right? And these transactions are local. I go to a supermarket and I use my card and pay from my account in a local bank, local products, and a local. I mean, even it's international products, correct, right? The transaction is between 2 local banks.
Yes.
My bank versus the bank of the shop, right? Yes. Supermarket, right? And the transaction is local. But for every transaction, when we use international card, foreign exchange flows out of the country in billions of rupees for a year.
That meager, minimal 3% adds up to a big bill end of the day.
So when you say meager 3%, it's actually meager for supermarket. But when you say 3% go and talk 3% to a small retailer, correct, their profit is probably 3% from the good or the service, or 5%. And when they have to part with that 3%, it's still so as a first step, what we did was also even what we call this merchant discount rate, or MDR, or the commission. If you don't bring it down, we will never go rural, because they will never accept taking 3 to 3.5% cut of it from this. So.
But what are the alternatives, Chan? I mean, what are we seeing? Are the relevant authorities and the industry bodies like yourself, is there any alternative coming in?
Absolutely. I mean, there are enough alternatives. Now, for example, all the payment modes that have been introduced through mobile payments,
yes,
the MDR is technically 1% or less. The local payment modes that have,
and the money stays in the country.
And money stays in the country. We've recently introduced last year a card scheme which is comparable to international cards. Technology-wise, technology-wise it's comparable, international class technology. And that card we have, that will be issued by banks and financial institutes in Sri Lanka in a debit mode as well as even a credit mode. MDR is capped to 1%, and not a red cent is going out for any local transaction from Sri Lanka. So money retains, merchants benefit because the commission comes less, and hopefully they will start accepting this because because the commission they have to pay out is low. So that was one of the fundamental obstacles, not the technology. The adoption among merchants has been low. And recently we have introduced with central bank something called Lanka QR. Right. So one of the problems that merchants face with
this little QR code we see,
which is the sticker that you have either on a stand or on a wall, right? All you need is you have a smartphone. You just scan it, and that provides you the biller credentials to make a payment using a mobile phone, right? So you don't even need that terminal, which costs sometimes 30 to 40,000 rupees which the merchant has to bear that cost, right?
Correct.
You don't need that. And in most cases we have a card but the merchant does not have a terminal. So even if we have a card, we have no option of paying.
But now you just scan the QR code.
You just scan the QR code, or you can even make an in-app payment. Your merchant is visible in your app. You just make a payment. So either through QR or in-app payments, which we call the payment mode Just Pay, which is basically transferring funds from your account to the merchant's account, or you just scan a Lanka QR code, which is a standardized QR published by central bank, and you have all the instruments in place.
And the information is safe. All your credit card details are going with the banks and not to any outside parties.
Absolutely. I mean, and it remains within the banking system. Anyway, the information is already in the banking system, so it will remain within that. So I think hopefully we have the underlying ecosystem in place.
Correct. Just a matter of adoption and taking it to the next level.
Absolutely.
Well, it's always good news to hear that.
Yes.
You're probably an entrepreneur thinking, all right, digital economy sounds good to be in, but what tools and technologies are available for me? Let's talk about that after this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Our focus today is on the digital economy. Where are we right now? What's the status of our progress? And most importantly, is it safe? Is it secure? And what technologies are available for Sri Lankan consumers and also the enterprises to adopt this digital economy more and to be an active part of it. And joining me for this discussion is the CEO of Lanka Clear, Channa De Silva. Channa, let's talk about a very important part of this digital economic ecosystem, and that is the developers. Sri Lanka is a country that is having an abundance of tech talent. I think some of the top global companies are depending on Sri Lankan talent for empowering their e-commerce operations. It's a matter of huge pride, not only from an economic viewpoint, but also from a nation's perspective. Yeah. Now, for someone who is planning, let's say a group of developers, a bunch of friends who have started a company and planning to enter this fintech space, as we call it, in your view, what kind of support is available that they can utilize, especially from the side of Lanka Clear and the central bank? Are there any frameworks available? Tell us about that, because if someone wants to know, okay, I'm ready to build the next big fintech app for the country, but what support is there for me? What's your answer to them?
Yeah, I think over the years we have built that support structure. Now we already see there are fintechs already operating in the market, because central bank has been very supportive, with multiple initiatives and supporting of the fintech initiative. We have actually supported, because what actually happens is, if the fintechs want to get into a financial transaction, that has to come to the formal financial system, which is through a bank or a finance company which is licensed by central bank. Obviously that is to protect safeguard the interest of the consumer as well, right? So because of that, the frameworks, everything is in place. Now the mechanisms of payments is also in place. So all they need to do now is to partner with one of the financial institutes and move forward. And central bank also has eased some of the requirements. Now, for example, previously the baseline security standard that I spoke about, right? Previously it had to go to central bank for approval. Now they have during COVID they eased that also. All they need to do is get the approval of the bank board and just submit it to central bank. So that has also been, so joining is, I think there are more encouragement and ease of use. But I want to address a different area of thought process for these potential fintech companies.
Please.
Right? Everybody wants to get into payments, right? But when you get into payments, what is the difference between payment app A, B and C? As a consumer, why would I use A, B and C? But I think payment is becoming more and more seamless. For me, why would I use these international ride sharing or local ride sharing companies? Because it adds convenience to me.
Correct. So with the one touch.
So the intention for me is not to make a payment to the three-wheeler guy, but to get it to the home, get it wherever I am, and track it and all those features. So what does it provide me? It provides me a digital service of going from A to B. It's not making a payment to that three-wheeler guy. So what a lot of these potential technology companies mistake is payment is the problem. Actually, payment is not the problem. Bring a solution that provides convenience to people's lives. Ride sharing is one, or getting food delivered, getting things delivered. I mean, there are so much green space out there. I mean, for example,
areas which people are not looking into.
not looking. I mean, these are the things. For example, if you are building a house, right? If you want to get a bag of cement suddenly, what is the option you have right now?
Nothing.
You have to go physically, get a three-wheeler, take that. Why can't I just get a fintech app? I just order, that gets delivered. And would I pay a transaction fee in addition, a service fee? Absolutely.
I'd be happy to.
Absolutely, right? I mean, there are so many motor vehicle spare parts, right? I mean, if your vehicle breaks down, getting a spare part, you have to send physically somebody, right?
Correct.
This can be get delivered through channels.
Channa, my question is now also adding on to this.
Yeah.
We see so many initiatives that come up saying, okay, for example, motor vehicle spare parts. We have seen so many websites through which people say you can order. But in my view, a lot of these young tech guys, no sooner they hit a bit of a rough patch or when they hit a wall, they don't try to find a way around it. They just abandon that. There are so many abandoned e-commerce websites and mobile payment platforms, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's lack of thinking end to end, right? Because technology is there. Now, for example, you don't have to do everything yourselves.
You can partner up.
Partner, right? I mean, there are so many delivery channels. You don't have to have your own delivery channel to do that. So it's just sharing the transaction fee, which is fine because otherwise it costs for you to enable that. So I think the technology must integrate all these different services together and provide a convenient service to the consumer. So if you provide that convenient service, which is mistakenly people think payment is the service, actually payment is not the service. It's using technology to provide convenience to people. Especially through an app, right?
Understood.
And if fintechs come with that, people will start adopting. I mean, prior to this ride sharing coming to the country, would you have thought we would use a mobile phone to get a three-wheeler? You go walk out of the house, there's a three-wheeler, you get in and go, right? But now more and more people are using because it's actually people have seen the convenience.
Understood.
So I think if these fintech companies start providing services, digital services, which are going to provide convenience to people's lives, people will start using. And then payment will flow as a back-end result of that. Now, would I use these ride-sharing apps to make a payment to the three-wheeler guy? Certainly, because I'm using that to anyway get that, right? So why would I, need to use cash, right? So I think it's a byproduct. A payment is only a byproduct where the service is actually something that provides convenience to the consumer. So if we come up with these things, I think the adoption will grow and the digital payments will flow in the back end.
Quite a valid thought there. Channa, what about addressing the issue that a small business owner will face? Because the backbone of the country's economy is the small and medium enterprise sector.
Absolutely.
Now, someone who is watching this show, someone who is thinking, okay, look, I have a small business. Let's say I have a small camera shop. I get down camera parts, I get down cameras and I sell. But so far, I'm only accepting cash or the normal via the cards. For a small business owner, they might be thinking, this digital payments, it's complicated, it's difficult, etc. But if you were to just tell them, look, these are the technologies at your disposal in Sri Lanka. This is what you can use. What would those technologies be and how complicated, or is it complicated at all?
Yeah, actually, it's not at all complicated. I mean, if you take the fintech space, there are almost 15 to 16 apps enabled in Sri Lanka. So they can adopt any of those as apps as merchants. They can sign up as a merchant to any of those apps.
So that means when a customer comes, they can directly pay using that app?
Using that app, right? So there are multiple apps, right? And so as a merchant, all you need is basically, signing up. And then the money will come and hit your bank account. And you don't even need a smartphone as a merchant. All you need is maybe a feature phone to get a SMS saying your money got transferred to your account. So it's very simple. Money will come, right? And also, collectively we have reduced the commission to 1% or less. So which is again a beneficial thing. So from a merchant side, it's absolutely beneficial in terms of not having access to technology is not a problem anymore, right? And also when we have introduced Lanka QR, they don't need anything. They just need that sticker on the wall. And when somebody scans and pays, the money will go, the merchant will get a SMS saying that the money got deposited into his account. So which the transaction and the sender, the customer will get a SMS saying the money was debited from his account, right? So it's very, very simple to use. So I don't think there's any fear of technology that the merchants need to get into. That is one side. The second side I want to address is actually one of the deterrent had been fear of taxes. from merchants. I mean, I think we had to openly talk about
Absolutely,
this, right?
absolutely.
Especially in the SME space. But now with the tax bracket going up to 3 million a year, which is 250,000 a month, most of these guys don't make 250,000 a month anyway. So they don't get caught to the tax bracket anyway.
Understood.
So why fear of taxes when you don't even get caught to the tax bracket? But you are getting more benefit because you are getting access to credit now. Through banks and financial institutes, because you deal in electronic transactions, they have a record of how much you make, and they can give you credit facilities to improve your business.
For sure.
So when you get benefits, and that fear of taxes is no more there. I mean, even somebody who makes 300,000 to 400,000, let's say, will get minimal taxes, right? Because even those percentages have been reduced. So I don't think that the fear of taxes should be a reason anymore to join. Understood. As well.
Channa, on a final note, let's talk about some of these alternative financial systems we are seeing in the world. For example, digital currency, cryptocurrency. Now, we hear of words like Bitcoin, and people are buying in Bitcoin. We saw Bitcoin going really low before COVID, post-COVID. Now we have seen a huge rise of Bitcoin back to almost the previously, I would say, the gigantic levels of value close to $20,000. Now they are expecting a correction again. We hear these terms, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and we also hear about China introducing a digital yuan in more of an attempt to take over the dominance of the US dollar as a worldwide global currency. Very interesting new developments we are seeing at the moment. But in your view, how long before we as a country will see some of these alternative currencies, maybe a digital rupee or cryptocurrency, in action in our economy? Your thoughts. And is it legal or illegal to use? Because there's a big thought process saying that no, using cryptocurrency in Sri Lanka is illegal. What is your thought on this?
Yeah, so I mean, from a central bank perspective, they have not made it legal yet in the country.
They have not made it legal
yet.
Does it make it illegal then?
Well, it's subjective. But certainly, I think the problem is, I think what this is, if something goes wrong, the onus is on you. You have no recourse. So which is the deterrent there, right?
Understood.
Because if a regulator has accepted a certain payment mode, then there is a recourse, something goes wrong. Now in these cases, somebody runs away with your money, you don't have a recourse. So which is a deterrent then and there.
And Channa, I also want to address something along with this, as you very correctly said. Now we see, as a part of digital economy, we see so many bogus websites which come up and say, pay us 50,000, and then for the next, let's say, 1 year, we will pay you 400,000 for doing, you just have to log into ads and click. Now, about 15-16 years ago also, we had a similar situation. One company where they had a small office where you can go pay register, and they said all you have to do is log into this website, and after a while the website was just shut down. So people have to also be much more mindful when using these options, isn't it? Just because a website comes, now there's a website recently saying pay us this much, and for the rest of your maybe 3-4 years you will be getting paid 400,000, and when you go and check out the about us, those are all pictures from stock images and image websites, but people still get caught.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is where, when you touch on the cryptocurrency, that is where the problem is. There are so many pyramid schemes, there are so many unethical, unscrupulous elements who are using this, and especially, as you know, we were grey-listed in against AML few years ago, and we with difficulty came out of that, right?
Correct.
So anti-money laundering things are happening using cryptocurrency. So that's why I think the regulator is
even
cautious.
Globally we see a lot of I would say these drug kingpins, they are using cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. So that is why I think the regulator is a bit cautious on sort of adopting this. So I mean, it might come, but I think it will be a slow So to address your issue of this bogus people appearing, I mean, there are so many websites, even Facebook sites, right, where are saying they are offering loans in 5 minutes, and you know what they do? They get credentials from all the users, they even give their one-time password, and these guys steal money. I mean, that has happened over the past. So rule of thumb is, please do not give away any your banking credentials to any unknown party.
Trying to say it again.
Online, right? So people are willingly giving away their banking credentials, account numbers, branch codes, passwords to unknown parties, just because somebody promises you to send a loan.
Understood.
Now we have also seen there are certain people who collect funds for illnesses and so on, right?
Yeah.
And people call and say, I'm going to send fund, please send me your password, and people give the password over the phone to these people.
Understood.
And they break into their account and steal money.
Take the money that has been collected.
Collected, which is with difficulty.
So as you very correctly mentioned there, true, we need to be more cautious.
Yeah.
The other part of the question was, what about this digital currency? Like, for example, the digital yuan being launched.
Yeah.
What kind of impact will it have on the global economics? On a final quick thought.
Yeah, so I think long term that might have an impact, because the adoption and all this will matter in that, right? And also the negative aspects of digital currency, has right now it's on crossroads. So nobody's really saying use this or use that. It's on your own, right? So I think for it to be accepted, it has to come to a sort of a de facto level, which technology it will take time, whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's this or that. But I think more of all this underlying is more of in the digital currency, blockchain technology. So the blockchain technology will get adopted more in other areas than currency. Right?
And already in Sri Lanka we see blockchain,
document sharing to other areas than currency. So currency will come at some point, but right now I think the focus for Sri Lanka is adopting of digital services that are already available. People are getting people to adopt. I think that if we solve that problem, whenever the digital currency comes in and when it becomes secure, all these AML issues go away, people will start using. But I think right now is not really a problem, but I think the problem is people, how do we get people to start using digital?
Well noted. Digital economy, the inevitable, services that are already here. How well have you adopted them? Have you adopted them and integrated them to your business so that your business gets the required competitive advantage way before the others come and join in the bandwagon? If you have done that, then my friends, you are definitely in a position to ride this digital economy wave in a much more smoother way and benefit to a greater extent. Our focus today was exactly on the digital economy. What technologies are available, where are we as a nation, and where is the world, and what progress have we made pre and post COVID-19 with regard to the digital economic activities, and more importantly, moving towards this cashless society. I'm quite thankful to our guest of the show today, Channa De Silva, CEO of Lanka Clear. Channa, it was a pleasure to have you. You shared all the wealth of experience and knowledge you had, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of Bisnomics. This is your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I will see you with the next episode, and no matter what business you are in, stay busy, stay booming, stay profitable, and stay safe.